Thank you, John, for being here with us. So thank you for participating in the FAST Campus. It's an honor having you with us and talking about your work and vision, John. My background and experience are connected to environmental law and more recently, the ESG agenda within companies, and including social and government aspects. And now we at Sesnic Quintino Salinas Fittipaldi Valério Advogados, our law firm, we are diving into what can be done in connection with this powerful agenda in the entertainment business, right? If I'm not wrong, you serve as the head of film and television for Activist Artist Management.
That is correct, yeah.
And represents writers and directors, as well as producing film and television, right?
Yeah, so we also represent actors as well.
Actors as well, right. Yeah. So your focus traditionally is representing your clients, writers and directors and actors, as you said, as well as film and TV development and helping your clients selling out films, setting viewerships, records, and negotiating positive strategic partnerships, as your company Activist describes in your website. But as it also says, that is just the beginning of what the Activist team helps your clients achieve. So can you tell us what makes your work at Activist different from the average and usual artist management professional work?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here. It's a great question, and I think it goes back to the founding partners and the corporate and company identity they set out from the beginning. You know, Activist was founded in April of 2018, and look, there's many divisions to the company. We have a music side, we've got a corporate consulting side, we have a film and television side, and we're capitalists. We want to, you know, produce good revenue and we want to have fun with our clients and make quality content. But there's a deeper, there's a deeper underlying internal drive, which is to use the awesome platform at our disposal when appropriate to affect meaningful change. And that platform can take many different shapes and sizes. With the Grateful Dead and Bob Weir and his environmental evangelicalism, I should say, his environmental friendly policies on tour that reverberates throughout the music community. And that's a huge priority, not just for the Grateful Dead, but also the Lumineers and Activist founding partner, Bernie Cahill. And we go through great pains to make sure we have a positive impact on music tours. When it comes to film and television, you know, we represent some wonderfully talented people. You know, we've got Terry Rossio, who he's literally the highest grossing screenwriter in the history of Hollywood. He's written all 5 Pirates of the Caribbean. He created Shrek. He's a very, you know, he wrote Godzilla vs. Kong. But he's also got some projects in development that have a deeper meaning behind them.
That's amazing. Yeah.
You know, so it really just depends on which project is appropriate, but creating quality content that can educate audiences without being quote unquote preachy is certainly a passion and a priority for Activists, and not just myself, but everyone here from the partners on down to the assistants.
Perfect, John. Thank you. So broadly speaking, my understanding is that in the entertainment business in general, we can talk about 2 different fields of action aiming at generating positive impact. Correct me if I'm wrong, or the social impact entertainment, as we can read here and there. One is related to the generation of content and influencing people and audiences positively. And the other is helping the production industry, the hardware that makes entertainment possible, less pollutant, and even generating positive outcomes for the environment and society, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. I think those are 2 massively important areas to focus on. I think reaching people through story is as old as human history itself. Back to going to paintings on the cave wall. Till now, it's you know, stories have the ability to touch and affect and move people, regardless of age, sex, demographic, sexual orientation. You know, people are moved by human stories, and you never know who's going to watch a movie and become the next great human rights lawyer or become the next great environmental lawyer. So there's that aspect, and then there is the other aspect, which is, you know, when you are on set and you are in production, how do you minimize your footprint? How do you not contribute to global
Sure.
warming? Or how do you reduce your contribution to global warming? How do you leave a location better than you found it? So those are two huge areas of focus, and there's a lot of great companies that have sprung up that focus on, green, for lack of better terms, like green locations and green sets and green touring, and it's a budding industry.
And thank you. And on the sustainable production, on the green production or green set, on this side, what are some of the main focus areas that production can improve, and what are some of the best practices you've been seeing around? I mean, what are the good things there?
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the foremost expert on boots on the ground touring. I'll tell you some of the high level things on what's happening, but carbon offsetting on air travel is a big one. A lot of, especially high level talents, fly private, and that can be taxing on the environment. But the ability to purchase and make sure that your travel is using carbon offsets is important. And even the things like the type of containers you're selling, like, are you selling, water bottles that are recyclable? Are you minimizing, wasteful styrofoam? Are you using biodegradable? Are you using, there's all these things that can be done. So, a lot of it's not reinventing the wheel, it's common sense.
Right.
Sometimes those options can potentially cost a bit more, but they're worth it in the long run. And there's just lots and lots of little things people can do to encourage the type of attendance from viewers, especially on tour, that would minimize the environmental impact on a given location. But again, that's not my expertise, so I want to be clear about that.
No,
there are many people here that are more educated on that front than I am. What we do though is, it's I think a lot of people, particularly entertainment, like to act like they know everything about everything. It's important to be honest about what you do or don't know as a high level executive. And while I may not have a particular depth of knowledge about something, we know people who do. So cultivating relationships with experts in this field and delegating that and trusting high integrity partners to accomplish that mission is just as important as knowing the ins and outs of every nook and cranny about a certain policy itself.
Okay, thank you, John. That's perfect. I agree with you. We can't know everything about everything. Right. So but let me go to on your expertise. I mean, what is your view on a purpose-oriented content creation or social impact entertainment, and the relation with the critical issues society is facing nowadays? I mean, what do you think that the creative industries are waking up to the awesome power they have to help shape positive narratives around the environmental social causes? How do you see this? Is it happening?
I think it is more and more. I think the world's gotten smaller, particularly since the pandemic. I think people are consuming more news than ever, and for better or for worse, that makes them acutely aware of what's going on, not just in their respective cities, but nationally, wherever that nation may be, and as well as globally. So people are more aware. The ability to consume information has become easier. Mobilely, for sure, is the primary way. And social media, a lot of people, and that's not always for the better, get their news off social media, which is not always fact checked. But that aside, yes, like studios, producers, talent, creatives, there is an innate drive to tell stories that need to be told. And there's still a need and a desire, don't get me wrong, to be able to go home, turn on Netflix or HBO and just be entertained and unplug. And I don't think that's mutually exclusive from what we're talking about. I think we live in stressful times. We just do. Whether you're worried about inflation, whether you're worried about COVID, or whether you're a single mother of two, like my mother was, trying to figure out how to put food on the table, things can be tough. And the entertainment industry, when quality content is produced, giving the people the ability to turn something on, share a moment with the family, and just breathe and laugh is of vital importance. Having said that, you look at projects like When They See Us, and you look at projects like Moonlight, and Don't Look Up even is a great example, and it was a heavy satire. These are very well told stories that are educational, and really illuminated a lot of different issues to different demographics that might not otherwise have heard of them. So I think the fine line in film and TV is finding projects you're passionate about stories that need to be told, and telling them in a way that doesn't come across as preachy. No one wants to be told what to think about a certain issue. But just telling an authentic story in a high quality manner with really talented creatives can have a better impact than a college lecture, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So if I understood, I mean, you're telling us that, I mean, awareness can be raised with good stories about our critical issues on,
yeah.
I mean, but do you think that we can also seek to achieve like behavioral changes in the society? I mean, actual changes by means of creative industries and good stories being told?
100%. And it depends on what story and what changes you're hoping to affect. You know, for a long time, I think people thought of content and action-oriented content and the docu space being hand in hand. Like if you wanted to be educated on a certain subject or educate the public, you make a documentary. And I think that's really no longer the case. You know, you look at going all the way back to a movie like Erin Brockovich. You know, law school applications among females increased for the next 18 to 24 months after that movie came out. You look at shows like The West Wing, you know, politics aside, whether you're right-leaning or left-leaning, that show, you know, had a deep impact on that generation. A lot of kids in that generation to go into college with an eye for studying public policy and political science and things of that nature. Most recently, you know, Hollywood's been dealing with the lack of representation. That's been a critical issue since its inception. You know, and now you're seeing more and more representation on screen, behind the camera, for previously underrepresented communities. The stories themselves absolutely can affect change. You know, there's countless examples of that. You look at the Oscar nominations each year, they deal with important stories that need to be told. Focus Features is a great studio that really is sort of a calling card when it comes to telling quality, high-end stories about important issues that need to be told.
That's true. And let me ask you something that it's connected. Well, in my, let's say, primary field of action, like environmental law, we heard a lot about greenwashing, right? I mean, companies that, like a deceptive marketing, some companies undertake to suggest they are environmentally responsible without actually doing the hard work to make their businesses and our planet more sustainable, right? You're familiar with greenwashing, right? I believe.
Yes. So
I read that there's a similar argument for what we might term screenwashing in the entertainment space. The superficial appearance of an ethical commitment to the greater good without really integrating the ethos of social, I mean, entertainment. How do you see that? Do you see this?
That's a dangerous question. I think there are two industries that are really chock full of hypocrites, and I think that's politics and entertainment. It's a trick question, because when people are trying to do something that appears to be altruistic and for the greater good, you never really want to question someone's motives. You know, I do believe in trusting your instinct. If you're working with a producer or a filmmaker or a representative, and you feel like you're getting lip service and your gut's telling you that, explore that instinct. You know, ask honest questions. I think a lot of issues in this industry can be solved by better communication, and a lot of issues can be solved by work ethic. I think what you're talking about, screenwashing, goes hand in hand with a lack of work ethic. People that want to do the work and want to do the work the way it should be done are the type of people you want in the trenches with you. People that are giving you lip service are usually the people that are going to talk a big game and not really do the work. They're not going to put in the time to package a project and find that writer that's going to tell the story the way it needs to be told. They're not going to put in that extra effort to go and find that article about, you know, the dangers of evangelical Christianity, for example, like a project we have in development with UCP. they're just not going to put in the time and effort or take a chance on a story that is maybe a little more esoteric than something that's perhaps more commercial. So trust your instinct, communicate, ask the right questions, and look at their actions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe you're right. And but besides the contribution to the content creation and like more sustainable productions itself, I believe activists also have a direct action, and that goes back to my previous question. You have a direct action activist foundation, I believe is one, right?
Yes.
And I believe you're also involved with the Southern Poverty Law Center. Is that right? So this is. Can you tell us a little bit more about these initiatives and what activist team objectives are connected with these direct actions to greater good?
For sure. It's a great question. So the Activist Foundation is we you know, it was started by the partners, and you know, there's you know, people like Caitlin Stone at Activist and Bernie Cahill who are more involved with it than I have been up to this point. Having said that, finding people who are social warriors on many different causes, and giving them a platform and resources to succeed and change is a priority. So we've worked with a woman out of Nepal named Nasim, who is fantastic and took on the issue of child labor. As it regards to the Southern Poverty Law Center, and going back to that issue real quick, going back to the child labor issue, you know, we plugged her in with a lawyer, we gave her a platform, we gave her education on certain issues. And she spoke at several conferences and educated powerful people on what's going on in that part of the world. It's a major focus for activists to find people that are doing the work, back them, and help implement change that way. Can't be all of our time. You know, we are representing clients and producing film and television, and you know, trying to keep the lights on, obviously. So that is, you know, a company that takes a breath and takes time to get behind people like that is one of the reasons I wanted to be a part of Activist. As it relates to the Southern Poverty Law Center, you know, I'm from a place called Jacksonville, Florida, and the South growing up, you would see Confederate flags. You just would. You know, you'd see racism is and still does exist in the Southeastern United States. So I was always aware of the Southern Poverty Law Center, of the work they did, particularly, you know, in the 80s and 90s, taking on the Klan, taking on neo-Nazi groups. And Bernie Cahill and I was in his office one afternoon talking about what kind of IP is out there on intellectual property exists from an organization that has the potential to tell important stories. And for whatever reason, the Southern Poverty Law Center popped into our brains, and we met with Margaret Huang, who's the president, and Leisha Brooks, who we talk to regularly and is one of my favorite people on the planet, and she's the chief of staff. And we quote unquote signed them, and then helped place them with United Talent Agency. And our mission with them is simple. It's, you know, we really want to raise awareness of the work they do and attract a younger demographic to the work they do and inspire younger people to be involved with them. It's, you know, that can be developing a scripted series, which we're doing, which I can't really talk about yet, but it is going to be exciting, and knock on wood, it's going to be a series order someday. Unscripted opportunities, helping them with fundraisers. They just, the SPLC just celebrated their 50th anniversary. So working with them this fall to make sure people know that they're celebrating such a milestone, celebrity involvement, the whole nine. So working with the SPLC is like, ranks near the top of one of my personal proudest moments when it comes to work. But it's not just me. You know, my assistant Anna is boots on the ground with me and coordinating multiple calls to elevate the awareness and the importance of the work they do. Again, Bernie Cahill, Caitlin Stone, very involved and very helpful. So it really is a team effort here, but it's something we're immensely proud of.
Well, that's a great job. Congratulations to your effort. I mean, that's very meaningful. We see a lot of artists and creative professionals making clear that they have a stand and positioning over diversity, equality, environmental issues, and even political, such as war or elections.
Yeah.
Does your work at Activist help them in building that attitude, understanding these complex issues, and building a consistent approach to them? How do you do that?
I'm sorry, say that last part again. I couldn't quite hear you.
I mean, do you help them understanding these complex issues and building a consistent approach to them? I mean, how
Right.
do you...
We don't come in, our agenda is to help on a broad level and to use our platform to help our artists implement change when it's organic. We're not coming into our clients and saying, hey, we want to tackle gun issue or gun violence, excuse me, or we want to tackle the war in Ukraine. Our, artists by definition are usually people in touch, are intelligent, emotionally intelligent people.
Connected with the present issues and...
Exactly. They're very aware of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So we're honored to represent people that want to organically be involved. What separates us is, instead of just brushing that aside and focusing on what's going to generate the most revenue in a given month, is really cultivating their desire to implement change and using our Rolodex of relationships and our strategic initiatives and our breadth of knowledge to help implement that change. So we never want to dictate, you should be doing this, this, this. Now, obviously, if we had a client that was wildly out of touch or saying certain things shouldn't be said, we would always have a conversation about what's going on. But when it comes to implementing positive change, we have a lot of clients that are inspired to do that all by themselves, and we get to help them achieve their goals.
Great. And here in Brazil, we frequently discuss social and environmental issues, right? Connected mainly with rainforest deforestation, greenhouse gases connected emissions, right?
Right.
And indigenous people and their cultural survival, police violence against Afro-descendant and poor people and their rights. Those are our issues. How do you see Brazilian artists, films or TV shows dealing with these issues? Do you know any of them?
I mean, there's a movie that goes way back. City of God is one of my top 10 movies of all time. It's an incredible film, and it's entertaining, and the characters are so well developed, and it really focuses on poverty in the slums and what it's a story about surviving the slums of Rio, and it's brutal, but it is absolutely one of those beautiful films ever told.
It's beautiful. Huh? Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
It's fantastic. That for me is sort of the I Ching of Brazilian cinema. I think I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on Brazilian cinema. I'm not. I think the good news is you look at the business right now, and just like I said earlier, the world's gotten smaller. So you look at the potential for a Brazilian-centric story to have a global impact, and a Brazilian-centric story to reach a global audience. It's more opportunistic than ever. Squid Game is a perfect example of that. Squid Game is out of Korea, completely subtitled. 900 million viewers later, it's the most watched television show of the past year. You look at a show like Lupin on Netflix, all subtitled in French about a black thief who, does what he does over there, and it's really entertaining. We represent an actor named Tomo Yamashita, very, very well-known actor in Japan. He is filming a show for Hulu called Drops of God, and that is being shot in English and French and Swedish. And the reason I'm saying all this is because language is not the barrier in film and television that it used to be. So you have US distributors and studios looking to territories like Brazil for quality content, acquiring those projects and putting it on air or on their streaming services in the US, therefore broadening the impact. So the opportunity is there to tell quality stories and reach a broader audience more so than ever before.
Great. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the good stories are out there. You just have to, the meaningful ones, right?
Right.
Let me ask you some, maybe, I don't know, a final question regarding this topic of, in the ESG world, there's a frequent question, which is whether ESG integration, which is like, let's consider environment, social, and good governance into the main business, into the core of business. If this is just a cost added, or if this helps, I mean, profitability helps business, if it's a good business at the end of the day, right?
Right.
What's your point of view on that issue, especially regarding the creative business of activists?
Yeah, it's a tricky issue, and I'll be honest. Sometimes I go back and forth. I'm not sure, there should be a quote unquote mandate from the top down that we have to tell certain stories. I think that's dangerous to artists. I think what is potentially, I don't want to say a better approach, but an approach that I personally might more agree with is making sure that artists have the ability to tell the stories they want to tell. And, let me back up. It's important that artistic vision is not mandated from the top down to achieve a public policy effect. I think passion ultimately is contagious. So you don't want someone giving orders and being like, we're going to do a film or TV show about environmentalism or about gun violence and just farming it out. Because I think the impact will not be as substantial as it would be if you go and find a creative who has their hair on fire for a certain issue and is going to work night and day to tell the best story they can about that issue. I think there should be incentives for creatives, tax breaks, government subsidies. There should be incentives for passionate artists to tell stories they want to tell, but it should be organic. It should be stories that they really feel passionate about. And it should never be mandated from the top down that people have to tell a certain story.
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe we are reaching our time, but finally, could you mention the best examples of good social impact entertainment? You mentioned some that you consider good ones. I would like to hear from you. What do you think is, good examples that are good products that are connected with our time, with our good issues, and can generate this engagement, awareness, and then change things for better?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's lots of examples. For me, the film Spotlight is a great example of a film that educated the masses and it ended up having some real substantive change being affected. Obviously, the Boston Globe broke that story back in 2002, and it was massive then, but a lot of people don't read the Boston Globe, particularly people that were younger. The way Spotlight went about telling that film and educating really the whole world on the evil, abuse, and cover-up by the Catholic Church that was lasting for decades and thousands of victims. That story was told without being preachy. It was packaged at the highest level with creatives and talent and educated the masses. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful example of a quote unquote activist project that had its intended effect. I know I said it earlier, but I think When They See Us, as hard as that was to watch, educated me a lot on, systemic racism in the U.S. judicial system, educated me a lot on the horrible, horrible conditions of U.S. prisons, and educated a lot of people on those issues. And that, tied into our work with the SPLC. People think of the Southern Poverty Law Center, they think, well, they take on Nazis and the Klan, and they do. And they take on those vile, evil people. But they also have a major sector of their company, or organization, I should say, dedicated to combating criminal justice reform, dedicated to combating systemic racism, immigration reform. But yeah, it's nice to work with the SPLC on criminal justice reform now that we've been educated on how bad it really is.
Great, John. Thank you very much. I think we have reached our time limits. It's been an honor talking to you.
Likewise.